Now, we have been hearing from the local member for Maribyrnong, the federal member for Maribyrnong, Bill Shorten, this morning. He's up in Sydney, but he's rushing back to Melbourne now to board a flight at Sydney Airport so that he can find out exactly what's needed from his residents in the local area. Yep, you can see the chopper heading away north, probably towards those flood zones. So let's have a listen to what Bill Shorten had to say in Sydney a short time ago, a long-time resident of Maribyrnong.
Perhaps 500, 600 people been evacuated. It's expected maybe that 60 plus houses would water would come across the floorboards. These are areas where I've lived for the last 30 years, and you know, there's the Saturday park run. It'll now be the park swim. The last big floods were in 1974, so for a lot of people this will be a new and devastating experience.
And I've just had some more breaking news that's just come into me right now here at Sky News. My understanding is that the Spillway gates at Lake Eildon, which is essentially the inflow point for the Goulburn River that ultimately flows through to Seymour in central Victoria, have just opened for the first time today. So the water's been spilling over the top, but now the gates have been opened at Lake Eildon. I've been told that releases there will be progressing to 38,000 millilitres per day over the next 24 hours, depending on the storage inflows. So that's one of the major dams that's been of major concern across the state of Victoria. As we've been looking at these live pictures now out of Maribyrnong, these are from our crews doing a great job on the ground. Our cameraman Nick Phillips and Todd Malkoutsis are down there. So the water's certainly bubbling around the streets there, particularly around that pocket around Rayleigh Road and heading north towards the Aberfeldy area. So Maribyrnong, obviously a major concern right now as these flood rescues that we've been watching progress over the last half an hour or so have been continued to be played out. There have been residents who've been on the top floor of unit blocks that have been waiting potentially for a rescue. These are some pictures from earlier of some of the flood rescues that our crews have been carrying there. A ute on the side of the road there, you know, obviously gaining a bit of refuge on the top of that dual cab Mitsubishi ute, but the Swiftwater rescue crew is able to come in and, it seems, rescue this group of gentlemen. So quite a great effort here from the authorities. As you know, they essentially the message from authorities has been, particularly since Tuesday, that if it's flooded, forget it. So you know, these people, whether they drove through floodwaters or whether they were in that area and essentially the waters come up very quickly, unable to know that for sure. But the SES doing a fantastic job there. Now, I've just had some more information just come to hand from the State Control Centre, where that Emergency Management Committee meeting's been going on. I've been told that as we watch this rescue play out, that a disaster declaration may not change the response or mean anything that's not being done can be, even though this is something that's being called for by the Victorian opposition, particularly for a disaster declaration in affected local government areas. So we're just watching this flood rescue pictures from earlier play out. You can see a tram stop in the back of this shot, probably around the Maribyrnong area. It probably shows how suburban this area is. These residents lucky to get out in a bit of ankle-deep water there. The poor lady there just taking a bit of a stumble, but luckily she's been assisted by that gentleman there. And obviously some of the dangers with this murky water. You know, there could be hazards in this water. There could be all sorts of issues there. So the message there from authorities, if it's flooded, absolutely forget it, Gab.
And you can see why in these pictures authorities need to reiterate that message time and time again when we do have flood warnings. You can see how dangerous it is. You can see the vehicles that are submerged in that murky flood water. You don't know what's underneath the flood water. And we saw people before, here they are, many leaving their homes, but we saw people before walking out in their gumboots, some carrying their pets, and they're just grabbing anything that's special to them from their homes because they don't know what damage this floodwater is going to do. So such a nervous time for so many residents, but it is fantastic to see such an incredible effort from the Victorian SES. Simon, is there any update on the flood payments that residents or anyone who is impacted by this flooding event, how they'll be able to actually receive the payments, or are there any more details that you have?
Yeah. So the detail I've got is payments of up to $560 per adult, $280 per child. They'll be available, and they're available at this website, emergencypayments.dffh.vic.gov.au. That's emergencypayments.dffh.vic.gov.au. So that's available now from the Victorian government. The Prime Minister's due to speak shortly, as we go back to some of these tape turnaround pictures, particularly around the Maribyrnong area. It would be interesting to see if the Prime Minister does declare some form of natural disaster, or at least an overlay of emergency protocols in some of these local government areas, so that these payments can probably flow a bit faster to people.
Right.
But at the moment, the state government payments are so far available, and we'll probably expect an update sometime around noon.